What inspired me to write this book on psychological safety at work is to explain why employees speak up, why they remain silent, how organizations can create climates where people feel safe to ask questions, admit mistakes, challenge assumptions, and contribute fully. I believe psychological safety at work is especially important for today's organizations because psychological safety is not a slogan to inspire behavior. It is a condition that determines whether truth can be spoken within an organization. Some employees need to be able to speak the truth, that is, to not only develop but also to assist in the development of organizations that they work in. In psychological safety at work, I define psychological safety as a shared belief within a team or organization that organizational members can take interpersonal risk without expecting punishment, humiliation, retaliation, or career damage. Those interpersonal risks include asking questions or requesting clarification, admitting uncertainty or mistakes, reporting risk, problems, or ethical concerns, challenging assumptions in higher status individuals, disseminating viewpoints, suggesting important new ideas. Psychological safety, therefore, is not merely a feeling of personal confidence. It is a measurable group-level climate created through repeated experiences. Employees observe how leaders and coworkers respond to questions, disengagement, mistakes, uncertainty, and bad news. Those responses teach people whether honesty is safe or whether silence is the more rational form of self-protection. From an IO psychology perspective, psychological safety is shaped by leadership behavior, team interaction, norms, performance systems, reward practices, organizational justice, and communication structures. It allows employees to direct their cognitive resources toward problem solving, learning, collaboration, and performance rather than toward inspiration, management, and self-protection. Common misunderstandings about what psychological safety is and what it is not include that psychological safety means being comfortable. Psychological safety means everyone must be nice. Psychological safety means avoiding conflict. Psychological safety means lowering standards. Psychological safety means every idea must be accepted. Psychological safety is an individual personality characteristic, and psychological safety can be created through a single workshop. But psychological safety is not freedom from pressure, disengagement, evaluation, or accountability. It is freedom from unnecessary interpersonal punishment for contributing honestly to work. Plainly, psychological safety means that people can speak the truth, examine mistakes, challenge ideas, and ask for help without placing their dignity, status, or career at unreasonable risk. Its organizational value lies in making important information available before silence becomes costly. The IO psychology perspective adds scientific explanation, organizational diagnosis, measurement, and intervention design to a topic that is often discussed only as a leadership attitude or workplace value by leaders, employees, consultants, and students in general workplace discussions. Thus, a general workplace conversation, leaders, employees, consultants, and students may say that leaders should make people feel safe to speak, but the IO psychology perspective asks more demanding questions like, what specific conditions make speaking up safe or risky? How do leaders behave? Team norms, reward systems, hierarchy, justice, and performance management affect employee voice? At what level does the problem exist? Individual, team, leadership, or organizational systems? How can psychological safety be measured? What intervention is most likely to improve it? How will we determine if the intervention worked? In my book, Through an IO Psychology Perspective, psychological safety is therefore treated not as a motivational slogan, but as a measurable and observable organizational phenomenon that is shaped by leadership actions, reinforced through team interactions, and sustained or undermined by institutional systems. The central contribution of the IO psychology lens is that it transforms psychological safety from a broadly desirable idea into a scientifically grounded, measurable, multi-level, and actionable organizational construct. It explains not only why people speak or remain silent, but how workplaces can be deliberately designed so that candor, learning, accountability, and performance can coexist. Psychological safety is important for trust, learning, communication, innovation, employee well-being, and organizational performance because psychological safety supports voice. Voice improves communication. Better communication strengthens trust and learning. Learning enables innovation and adaptation. Reduced self-protection supports employee well-being. Together, these processes improve organizational performance. The opposite cycle is equally important. Fear produces silence. Silence weakens information quality. Poor information undermines trust, learning, and decision making. Problems remain hidden, employees become exhausted or disengaged, and organizational performance deteriorates. My book's central argument is therefore that psychological safety is not merely about helping employees feel comfortable. It is about creating the conditions under which truth can be spoken, knowledge can be shared, mistakes can be examined, ideas can be improved, and people can contribute fully before silence becomes costly. It is important to understand psychological safety as more than just an individual confidence issue or a leadership style. Because, in theory, psychological safety must be understood as a multi-level organizational condition. Because speaking up is not determined solely by an employee's confidence or a leader's preferred interpersonal style. It emerges from the interaction of individual risk, perceptions, team norms, leadership behavior, organizational culture, and formal systems. Storytelling and real-world examples make psychological safety observable. The concept can otherwise remain abstract. Sometimes readers agree it is important without being able to identify how it develops, deteriorates, or affects performance in everyday work. In psychological safety at work, the case studies connect theory, organizational models, leadership behavior, team interaction, and workplace consequences. They help readers move from asking, "What is psychological safety?" to asking, "What would this look like in an organization?" The case studies help readers see that psychological safety is created or damaged in ordinary organizational moments. A question in a meeting, a response to bad news, a performance conversation, an ignored suggestion, a reported mistake, or a disagreement with authority. The power of storytelling is that it makes hidden processes visible. Readers can see how silence develops, how trust is lost or strengthened, how systems reinforce behavior, and where intervention is possible. In that sense, stories serve as a bridge. Theory explains psychological safety. Cases show readers where to find it, how to diagnose it, and what to do about it. An organization can appear successful, meeting targets, growing revenue, maintaining a polished culture, or producing strong short-term results, while still lacking psychological safety. Performance outcomes are lagging indicators. They do not necessarily reveal whether employees feel able to question decisions, report risk, admit mistakes, or challenge ineffective practices. So you have to think about these signs psychological safety may be lacking. And its meetings are consistently quiet or unusually agreeable. The honest conversation happens after the meeting. The same few people do most of the talking. Leaders request feedback but react defensively. Bad news reaches leadership late. Very few mistakes or near misses are reported. Employees provide surface level participation. Ideas are instrumental and experimentation is rare. Employees protect their reputations instead of solving problems. Workarounds become norm. Employees rarely challenge questionable decisions. Anonymous feedback differs sharply from public feedback. Performance pressure is accompanied by fear. Burnout, disengagement, and turnover exist beneath strong results. Employees believe speaking up will not change anything. Policy is developed when employees raise concern. That is, so those concerns do not rise again. The strongest warning is a persistent difference between what employees know and what the organization is able to discuss openly. Leaders and employees who want to strengthen psychological safety should begin by treating psychological safety as a measurable organizational condition, not as a communication slogan, employee benefit, or one-time training topic. The first step organizations can take without treating psychological safety as just another temporary initiative is to determine where voice is being encouraged, where it is being suppressed, and what employees believe will happen if they ask questions, report mistakes, challenge assumptions, or deliver bad news. Most critically is to buy my book, where I outline an intervention model which presents a clear sequence: assessment, leadership development, team communication practices, organizational system alignment, and cultural reinforcement. These elements must work together to strengthen psychological safety for improvement on this topic in organizations to last. I approach writing this book that could speak to such a wide audience across different industries and professional backgrounds by beginning with a workplace problem. That is nearly universal. People often possess important knowledge but remain silent because they are uncertain about the interpersonal or professional consequences of speaking. That problem can affect a graduate student entering the workforce, a frontline employee, a manager, an executive, a consultant, or an academic researcher. Starting with that shared human and organizational experience, allow the book to address a broad audience without becoming disconnected or overly generalized. The goal was to make the material scientifically credible, professionally relevant, and practically usable. The preface explains that the book treats psychological safety not as a motivational slogan, but as a measurable and observable organizational phenomenon shaped by leadership actions, team interactions, and institutional systems. It also explicitly identifies leaders, managers, scholars, and students as intended readers. The companion guide for professors offers a manner to guide students to differentiate psychological safety from comfort, harmony, leniency, or low accountability, while examining how leaders, teams, and organizational systems either encourage or suppress voice. The workbook also helps students evaluate psychological safety using survey data, behavioral evidence, maturity models, and case-based reasoning, including applied learning resources such as a 20-item psychological safety survey for analysis, a maturity model for case diagnosis, a graduate case analysis template, a research to practice translation worksheet, and a capstone consulting project. The companion workbook can help faculty members teach psychological safety in a way that is engaging, practical, and academically meaningful for students because it translates psychological safety theory into structured classroom learning, applied case analysis, research to practice assignments, measurement, practice, and consulting-oriented skill development.